What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another YouTube video. Look, guys, I got to be really careful today because it's been raining all night here in western North Carolina, and I'm going up the mountain. It's a little bit colder here, so we're somewhere between late summer and early fall. I'm not going to go too crazy with my driving. I really got to be careful. I don't want this to be the last video I shoot with the M3, so we're going to keep it a little bit chill. Of course, you know me, I'm still going to have a little bit of fun, but this is the perfect time for me to make this video for people wanting to know what it's like for long-term ownership of the BMW M3 F80 to be exact. My F80 M3 is a 2017 Yas Marina Blue. F80 M3 is not a comp. Here I am 3 years later, almost 3 years later, and I am still madly in love with this car. It is such a fun car to drive. I told you, I gotta be very careful. This car is such a fun car to drive. It's very nimble, it's very unpredictable in a way, which I love. I understand the E90 and E92 guys now, like whenever this car came out and they're like inline 6 twin turbo, like I don't know about that. I don't want to go to that. I understand you guys now, because whenever this car came out was whenever I actually got into BMW, and I always wanted this car, mostly because of its looks, because I didn't know what I was actually, you know, I didn't know about the car at all. So the looks of this car got me reeled in, and now here I am with my M3, and those guys, they were like, nah, I'm keeping my naturally aspirated V8. I like that better. Yeah, sure, this is faster, but it's bigger, it's less of a driver's car, there's too much tech. Now that I have an F80 M3, whenever the G80 came out, that's kind of how I looked at it. I was like, I like my F80. I like the F80s. I like the F82s. You know, they're still very popular. I'm going to stay right there. So I understand completely. Now that I'm looking at it, it's like every generation just has their own things about them. Like the G80 is so fast and the tech is so good, but you don't get the driver's experience that you get in one of these cars. Maybe in like the new M2, the G87, I've heard is like really good to drive, but I've been in G80s. They're very heavy, they're very fast, you know, they feel like a boat. This car, still very nimble. Takes corners really well, and I'm not really a straight line guy, so I don't really care that much that the M340s with the B58 and the S58 cars are so much faster. To me, the looks, the feeling of this car, it makes me actually want to go back a generation and try an E9X M3. So that's kind of what that has done to me. I've turned into one of those guys. 3 years of ownership with this car, and I'm still in love. Now, I don't know if I tried something new, if I wouldn't fall in love with it like I've fallen in love with this car. I think I'm definitely a little bit biased because, like I said, this is the car that came out whenever I got into the brand. And, you know, this was all I wanted. This was what kept me up at night. And now having one, I just, you know, I've fallen in love with different things more and more. Long-term ownership with these cars, people worry about things breaking on them. Of course, it is a BMW. But the way that I feel about this car is that I've had a really good experience with maintenance and everything. I take care of this car as good as I can, and I'm going to continue to do that. You know, we're almost at 100,000 miles with this car. We're at 96,000 miles. I bought the car with 60,000 miles, so I've put that many miles on this car in almost 3 years, which should tell you how much I enjoy driving it. I enjoy the road presence of this car and all the compliments I get whenever I take it out. You know, it just never gets old. That's one of the best things about the BMW community, especially the M community, is it doesn't really matter which generation you have. There's always a place for you, and we all look at it like it has its place in time, and it's very valid, which I love. So, you know, if you have an E46 M3, I'd love to own one of those myself. So hopefully all the money in the world comes around, because I'm trying to own all of these cars. One thing that I did do to this car that's very controversial is I did do the crank up fix. You know, it's kind of looking back at it, I wonder if I would have been okay if I wouldn't have done the crank hub. who knows, but I don't have to worry about it. So I threw that maintenance right out of the box. Just like, I'm not going to take a chance, I'm going to do it, and I did. 3 years later, and I haven't had that issue, which is nice. The other issue that I've ran into with this car, and I don't think that it's a myth, but some people say it is actually the charge cooler on these cars tend to break. They're made of plastic. They, you know, expand and retract whenever, you know, it goes from hot to cold all the time, and the plastic eventually cracks, and then it leaks coolant out of the charge cooler. And I mean, it's just, you know, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that crazy of a fix if you don't want it to be. I went ahead and replaced mine. I know that the OEM charge cooler is best for performance. I get that, but I went ahead and changed it, and I haven't had that issue again as well, which, thank God. All right, I got to be really careful, but go through this tunnel right now, because everyone says this car sounds bad, but once you get used to it and, you know, understand why it sounds the way it does, you can kind of get around it. This car, to me, it actually sounds pretty good. It actually sounds very similar to the S58. So, I mean, you know, you're not going to get the new M3 and get away from that raspy, kind of ricey, just really obnoxious exhaust note. These cars have it. You know, if you don't want that, then I guess you're going to have to go back to an E9X, because that's really the only one that ever didn't have that kind of sound. I mean, all the other cars have been inline six motors. This one, they added turbos to it, and the next generation added turbos to it. So, you know, you're not going to get away from that. Pretty much the best sounding inline sixes that they make that are turbo cars are the N55 and the B58, and those have their own place here as well. So, you know, if you want to opt for that, then go ahead and do it. But for me, I just personally like M cars. Full-on M cars are, you know, what I really like. And, you know, the OG M2 is a full-on M car, but it has the N55B in it, and it sounds really good. And those are actually really cheap right now. I knew that getting into these cars. Like, I knew that this car didn't have like the most favorite sound of all the M3s. So I knew that. The one thing that I feel like carries this car the most is just the road presence and the look of this car. I mean, it's just such a beautiful car. You really can't beat the way that it looks. I don't think there's a better looking M3, and I know that there's a lot of people who would argue with that, and that's fine. That's your opinion, but mine is that there's not a better looking M3. It's, you know, it's very similar to the E9X. It's just a little bit more aggressive looking, and it's very timeless. You know, in the F80 with the wide hips, I love it. There's not an angle that this car looks bad from. I'm not gonna lie. There's angles I see the G80 that I still don't like. You know, the rear looks great. I don't even dislike the front anymore, but like the side shot, the kind of from an angle to the front, it just, I don't know, there's something about it. It's almost like the rear is too rounded and BMW looking, and then the front is just something else. Probably controversial, because those cars have grown on everybody. But this car, to me, is still king with the way that it looks. It looks amazing. Almost 3 years later, and I still haven't changed my mind about that. Back to the maintenance on this car. After almost 3 years, it really hasn't been too much to take care of. The one random thing that I had happen to me on this car that is not common, I had to replace the steering rack on this car. I can't think of anything else that's happened with this car. Knock on wood, it's been such a great car. I mean, I can't really complain whenever I've been able to just get in this car and drive it whenever I want to for 3 years. That's all you really need to know about it. I mean, it's been a great car. You know, we're almost in 2025. This is a 2017. A 2017, and it's still one of the most popular cars on the internet. That kind of speaks for itself. I think that these cars are going to be that way for a long time. I've just had to learn to embrace the flaws of this car. After you put 96,000 miles on an F80 M3, you're gonna have a pretty rattly car. Just kind of, you know, kind of doesn't feel at all luxury anymore. But this car feels great whenever you're going fast and going around turns. Like, that's what this car is made for. That's all it needs to do in my book, is be able to do that really good. When you're going fast, this car is just really good. You know, at 100,000 miles, I'm gonna have to do pretty much a lot of service on this car, which is what I've been planning on. You know, I'm gonna service the diff, I'm gonna service the transmission. I'm really excited just to kind of continue to keep taking care of this car. I don't really mind putting miles on this car because I've learned that somewhere down the road, I'm not getting rid of this car. You know, I just bought a Porsche Macan GTS for a daily driver. That gives me enough, you know, excitement during my day while I'm working. Then I get in this car and it's obviously so much better. I've taken nothing but care of this car since I got it, and I actually enjoy taking care of it. And I really think that if you know, replace things when they need to be replaced, get things addressed whenever it needs to be done, I don't think that you're going to have a problem out of these cars. You know, really any high mileage sports car, especially German, there's things that are going to happen, and you're just going to have to deal with them if you plan on owning the car for a long time like I do. I just can't get rid of this car. It doesn't make sense with the market right now. It's like at a weird place where your normal specs with kind of higher mileage are going for way cheap, and then you've got people asking out of this world for like an individual car with a decent amount of miles on it. So we're at a weird place. All of the, you know, kind of clapped out cars are for sale for really cheap. And it's not even a bad thing in my opinion. I think that, you know, it gives some people that really wanted in these cars a long time ago to get the chance to get into one and treat it with the respect that it deserves. These cars, I would pick one up right now if I were you and I was thinking about it, because it's just, it's that time, honestly. It's that time. These cars are eventually, you know, the market's eventually going to go back up. People are already figuring out that they want to get back into one of these cars. Even if you bought a G83 4 years ago, there's people who are now deciding it's like, I can go and get an F8X again and have both. And there's so many things about that car that I love that I don't get with this car. I think it speaks for itself, the popularity of these cars. Looking at getting into one of these cars and you might be getting a higher mileage car, I would say just do your research, make sure that the car has been taken care of, maybe try to find someone that a bunch of people are vouching for, or get your pre-purchase inspection. Get a car that's nice, that you can tell has been well taken care of. Don't buy something that's, you know, beat up and crappy, because you can just tell, like, you know that someone hasn't taken care of it. So if you do that and then you continue to take care of it and address everything that needs to be done whenever it needs to be done, I think that you'll have a lot of fun with it. I think that you'll love it like I do. I love this car. It doesn't get old. It never looks old. Like, every time I pull this car out of the garage, I get out and I stare at it like a maniac. Sometimes I'll get home and I'll just stare at this car. I'm that guy. Like, I'll pull this out of the garage, I will crack a beer, and I will sit and stare at it. I wash it when it doesn't need to be washed. Like, I'm a maniac. I know that some of you who are watching this channel right now, you're like that too, and you would be like that if you had one of these cars. Don't be scared to pull the trigger, especially whenever the market is low. Just do your homework and make sure you get a good car. It's just been an amazing experience. I've made a ton of friends. I love this car. It's done a lot for me. It's just, you know, it's made me work harder in life. It's, you know, pushed me out of the box a little bit with, you know, having to have a lot of money to modify this car like I've modified it. I mean, I've done a lot to this car, and I've made a car that a lot of people really like stop and want to look at, because, you know, everything is tasteful and everything is good, and it costs money, you know, and it's a journey that everybody goes through whenever they decide to build a certain car. Like, it's what we all do, right? You get something, not only did you know, stress out about even buying it in the first place, but now you have to stress out about how you're going to put wheels on it, how you're going to lower it, how you're going to modify it. Like, it's a whole process, and like being pretty much done with this one, it's very weird. It's very weird, you know. It didn't take me very long, but I've just been kind of enjoying it, and it's been great. I can't really complain. I mean, the only thing I have to complain about right now is why, you know, people like to ride their bikes on the main road. And don't tell me to come around you, I know that you don't see a car around there. If I could go back, I probably wouldn't have done it any differently. I'd still say that. I said that in my one-year review. I really love this car, and I think if you're into BMWs and, you know, you've always wanted an M car, maybe the M3 specifically, I think that you would not be disappointed getting into one of these cars. You'll definitely never be disappointed in the way it looks. The way it sounds, you know, whatever. You might not like it, but kind of the way that this car sounds goes out the window whenever you're, you know, full throttle, downshifting this thing in the corners. Like that, the sound of this thing kind of goes out of the window. So, if you really want to get one of these cars, go for it. Like, really go for it. I'm telling you, I'm 3 years in, almost 40,000 miles that I've put on this car, and it's been really fun. There's like so many things that I'll never forget about owning this car. I'll never forget the day that I bought it. I'll never forget the way I felt driving it home. You know, I'll never forget how I felt whenever I got home, pulled this thing in the driveway, got out and looked at it for the first time as my own car. Like, I'll never forget it. It's an experience that will be remembered for the rest of my life. And, you know, I think that that says a lot for itself on what this car means to me. And even after owning it for the amount of time that I have, it still means that much. This car is still my baby. Even though I just bought a Porsche, there's nothing like getting in this car. This car is like the car for me. And I'll always have an M3. You know, as of right now, I don't have any plans on getting rid of this, but I don't know what the future will hold. I don't think there will ever be a time in my life where I don't have an M3. I mean, my biggest plan right now is to get this one squared away and go pick up an E92. Something else to work on, something else to have fun with, something else to appreciate. So, if you're watching this right now and you're, you know, just trying to decide what you should do, and you're ready, you feel like you're ready to pull the trigger, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be a bad influence, but I'm telling you right now, just go do it. You'll love it. You really will. You'll love it. You know, it's an experience that you don't get with other cars. You know, I've had other BMWs, I've had other cars. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to go buy a C63 AMG and get the feeling of community or just, you know, the love that you get whenever you own an M3. You're not going to get that. Like, BMW has that locked down. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Please drop a comment, share it to a friend. I would really appreciate it. This is what I love to do. I've got something to show you guys, actually. You guys gave me shit about my wing on my M3. Well, check this wing out on this 328, baby. Now that is something else. You guys see that? that guy's gonna watch this video and go buy an M3, I guarantee it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.